essentially.
That's one of the reasons I believe that we listen to people who have things to say. So if we go back to the flower of life. So Terrence has a couple of ideas, one of which is this is the shadow. Another of which is that once you go into higher dimensions, you should be thinking in, so you should be thinking of these curved linear structures. And then instead of focusing on the spheres, you should focus on the areas in between, the voids. And in crystallography, you might call this the interstitial voids. So there's several ideas that this confused, by the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he said, I don't know where these shapes come from, but they are beautiful. That was like the faint praise that he ends his critique with. So what Terrence is doing here is he's saying, look, the circles are cross sections of spheres, and the spheres have to be placed in very precise places to generate what Terrence is going to start talking about as wave conjugations. And he has different ways that spheres run into each other. Then he says something very cryptic, where he says, if you drop a
pebble
in the center of a spherical lake, circularly symmetric lake, the wave will radiate out until it hits the wall, the shore, and then it will radiate back. And so he's talking about this, and he says wave conjugations, and wave conjugation didn't call up anything directly when I heard him say it.
They would call it a phase conjugation.
Well, or they would talk about, you know, the conjugate wave coming back. If you do something like a garden hose that's affixed to the wall, it'll hit the wall and come back or something. So what Terrence is talking about is the idea, and you could do this, where we could drop, like, let's say 6 stones in precise places in water, and then, you know, using super slow-mo, watch what happens as these waves in precisely placed places run into each other. Because really what physics is waves in collision.
And they're going to create a particular cymatics, which is going to show the harmonic points where matter and all of those things occur. That's predicted.
I'm not going there yet.
Okay.
So then what Terrence does is he has in Blender some means of bringing up platonic solids that are not the usual. So I bought some of these platonic solids from Amazon, and you see that they're all extremely Cartesian. They're made up of flat faces, our best attempt to do flat faces. Terrence says, I don't think that has to be the case. If you generate these things from this pattern, and he focuses on the tetrahedron and an octahedral structure.
Can you go up, Jamie, please, so we can see it as from that side perspective of it? Yeah, go around.
Okay, so what that is a curved linear tetrahedron with spherical, and it's not actually hyperbolic. Those are going to be positive curvature, not negative curvature. No, that's going to be positive curvature.
Compressing in.
Yeah, I think it's positive curvature because those are going to be parts of spheres.
The spheres are interacting.
Yes, but negative curvature would be more like a Pringles chip, where the principal axis of curvature went in different directions. So I think it's not negative curvature.
So this isn't the negative space between 4 bubbles?
No, what you mean by negative space, negative curvature and negative space are different concepts. So the word negative is appearing twice, and that's why we're confused. Again, you know, there are a million of these gotchas where you're not
Can you describe the difference between the two?
Sure. If I take the tip of my nose, that's going to be positive curvature because I've got one
extending out.
One curve going in one direction, the other is going in, they're curved in the same direction. On the other hand, if you look at like the crease of my nose, that's going to be negative curvature because I've got one that's going like this and another that's going like that. Jamie, is it possible to take a look at a monkey saddle? So that would be negatively curved, right? Because you'd have things going in opposite directions.
That looks like a cool seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks a little comfortable.
Okay, so negative curvature is what.
Model of that.
Yeah, so negative curvature would be what we would be talking about with like hyperbolic space. And spherical curvature would be what we're talking about with the inside of those curvilinear triangles on his. So he's making, again, I don't see this isn't where I think it's worth, saying he's wrong. He's just doesn't know the language and doesn't know that there's a formalization of it. Now, if you take, so the other structure that he keeps running across is an octahedral curvilinear, I don't know what, it's not really a platonic solid because it's not flat.
If you go push, you have to push on the jewel on the side, Jamie. If you go to the side of the thing, press on that jewel, and then go to the to that blue on that right. That blue, yep. And then you get where 8 bubbles went.
So now what he's doing is he's saying, if I have 8 bubbles, and these bubbles, each face of this object, this octahedral object, he's taking a sort of curvilinear triangle on a sphere, and he's imagining that these things are all sort of racing towards each other. And how would you generate? No, don't. If you put those 2 in, he's going to go into a different world.
No.
So if we take,
you can just tap on each one of those tetrians. Just tap it; it'll go away. Tap it, it'll go away.
Now, how would you generate? So Neil doesn't know where this comes from, right? Now, the way in which you would do this, I believe, is that you would take a. Let me think about how you do this. You take the 8. No. You take the 8 vertices of a cube, and you put a sphere at each one, small sphere. So imagine that you had a vertex at 1, 1, 1 in 3-dimensional space, and then you had another vertex where all of the vertices are going to have either 1s or negative 1s. So you have 8 possibilities. So you could have -1, 1, 1, or 1, -1, -1, etc. You allow those spheres to increase to a size of square root of 2 radius, and that will close off all of the means of escape, leaving a cavity in the center of your cube. And that cube will have an octahedral cavity that looks like this. That's how I think you generated this.
I actually generated this by putting 8 pieces together. I took 8 of those triangular pieces together, and I put them together. They basically became the basis of 2 tetrians.
Yeah.
Which this would be seen as a neutron. And the interesting thing about this piece right here is nature always makes things in pairs, and they're always balanced. This doesn't exist. This exists only as a result of a pressure condition, a higher pressure condition. Jamie, if you go to that last blue, tap that last blue on, past not the last blue, go around one more time. That one right there. That Huntian only exists as a result of the 8 pressure conditions created. Hold on, you'll appreciate this. Tap on that the Huntian in the middle. No, not that one. Damn, you gotta start it again. You can, hit that one again, and then tap on tap that. Make that go away. That right there is the pressure condition created from 8 tetrians interacting, and they create that other greater pressure condition. That's the negative space that they generate, but it's a massless area, because the moment that the tetrians disappear, that space goes away and the energy generated disappears. But it's a part of everything in my model.
You're putting a lot of words. Like, first of all, let's just admit that this looks gorgeous. It's
cool.
Incredible.
Turn it around, Jamie, so they can see it, please.
So, the problem, Terrence, is that you have a desire to go immediately towards what this means, right? And before you get to what it means, people don't even know what it is.
True.
Right? So what I'm going to claim is I've got these 8 rambutans here.
What's a rambutan?
It's like a gorilla testicle. Yep. never had these?
No, what are they? Is that fruit?
They're
yeah,
fruit.
it's like
Really-
lychee.
Yeah.
Oh, lychees. I've had
But,
lychees.
but this is, I think rambut is the Indonesian word for hair.
Where'd you pick those up?
Ranch 99 Market.
It would have got you some flowers, but the light. Light changed.
If I take 8 of these suckers
Okay.
and I arrange them in a cubicle formation, there's going to be one of Terrence's things
In the center.
in the center.